And it's a Tuesday morning on your Feel Good Breakfast show. We're live, large and in charge. Thanks for joining us at the start of a brand new day. Now, the 15th of August until the 15th of October is dedicated to bone marrow stem cell donation and leukemia awareness. Thousands of people are diagnosed with leukemia every year, and many hope to make a full recovery with the help of a bone marrow stem cell transplant. And this morning, hematologist Dr. Mike du Toit joins us to share his knowledge on this health topic. And of course, later on, we'll also be joined by Sunflower Fund CEO Alana James. And of course, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please send them through to us. You can WhatsApp us on 066 431 5261. That's 066 431 5261. Send us a WhatsApp. Dr. du Toit, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat to us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Dr. du Toit, let's start here. What is leukemia? Is it a form of cancer for someone who doesn't know, who's not familiar with the term?
Yes, it is. So by definition, it's an overproduction of what we call white cells in the blood, which is uncontrolled, and that defines it as a form of cancer. But there are many different types of leukemia, and they're all quite different. So it's just a big catch-all phrase.
Yeah. Let's talk about white cell, or the blood cells in general, and their function in our body. What do they do?
Well, blood's the red stuff, and there are three kinds of cells in the blood. We have the red cells, which are the ones that give you energy, make you run faster, jump higher. There are the white cells, which are your immune system, and they fight infections. And there are these little things called platelets, which are little fragments that stop us from bleeding. And all this has to exist in a liquid medium, which must stay liquid. We don't want it clotting up when it shouldn't. But if we spring a leak of some sort, if we get injured, we want it to clot. So the blood's got to do a lot of things in a very clever way.
So back to the conversation of leukemia, can it be prevented? Can it be prevented? What are the risk factors?
Well, yes and no. By the time you're diagnosed with leukemia, you've got it.
Okay.
So you only diagnose it once it is there.
All right.
But there are certain factors which can contribute to your getting leukemia. There are three main ones, and those are exposure to an excessive amount of radiation, or to benzene-type petroleum chemicals, or to certain viruses. So if you can avoid those three, you may reduce the element of risk.
Let's talk about some of the signs and symptoms that one can expect to see if you do have leukemia.
Well, it's very difficult because if you get a leukemia, it affects the other cells in the blood, and that's what causes most of the problems. So if you have a reduction in the red cells, you become pale, you're anemic, which is a common symptom. If you drop the platelet count, then you start having little red spots on your skin, what we call petechiae, and that's a common symptom as well for a variety of different causes. And then if you drop the critical white cell count in the blood, then you become very vulnerable to infections, which is also a common symptom. So all these three, anemia, pallor, being very pale, having infections and having easy bruising are common symptoms, and the issue becomes apparent when they occur together. So that's the sign, that is a potential sign of leukemia. Individually, you probably don't have leukemia if you have any one of those problems individually. But if they occur together, you have to have a good look.
So let's say now you've presented with all of those symptoms, then you have gone and been diagnosed with leukemia. Then you've got to go on to treatment. What does that treatment look like? How is it treated? How is leukemia treated?
Well, as I said, leukemia is a variety of different conditions, all of which are characterized by an increase in the white cell count in the blood. And just broadly, we divide them into what we call chronic leukemias, often in older people, which don't always need to be treated. You can have very high white cell counts, but they don't affect you. If they don't affect you otherwise, we can just watch those. The bad ones are the acute leukemias, and they tend to occur in younger people. Those all need to be treated with a chemotherapy of one sort or another.
Sure. All right. So clearly a lot for us to still discover and learn about. And I'm sure that you at home also have a lot of questions. So do make sure that you stay tuned to your Feel Good Breakfast show, as hematologist Dr. Mike du Toit will be answering all of your questions on leukemia and bone marrow stem cell donation. A little bit later on, we'll have the CEO of the Sunflower Fund, Alana James, also joining us. And so just to give you that number one more time for you to WhatsApp us is 066. It's on your screen right now, 431 5261. WhatsApp us all of your questions, and we look forward to engaging with you.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Hey, very good morning to you. Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast show as we continue our health topic this morning with hematologist Dr. Mike du Toit, who's educating us on all things about leukemia. And of course, we welcome your questions via social media and also via our WhatsApp line, which is on your screen. So let's jump right into it.
Yes, so Doctor, the questions have been flying through on our social media. The first one's from Caitlin Bass, who says, my mom has CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, and has been in remission by way of medication for a very long time. Besides taking her Vertavio, are there any new and promising treatments available?
Well, the drugs like Vertavio, they are known as TKI drugs, they are still the standard treatment for chronic myeloid leukemia. And essentially, you would expect patients to remain on those drugs lifelong. There are a few patients who do come off these drugs. Most of them will relapse, but some don't. We don't always know why they don't relapse. We would expect everyone to, but not everyone does. So, but in principle, once you're on these Vertavio type drugs, you stay on them for life.
Yeah. And in terms of the second part of the question, where it was Caitlin who asked if there are any new promising treatments in the field of leukemia, as broad as it is.
In leukemia general, many.
Yeah.
Many. You know, there's a plethora of new options, but not all of them work out in practice.
Yeah.
These are potential options, and you know they always say that out of America you get 5 new discoveries before breakfast, but you discard 4.5 of them by lunchtime.
Yeah.
So they don't all work out, but there are a lot of potential treatments. The cost of those treatments is another story altogether, though.
Yeah.
That's the
And
challenge.
that means that they are not generally available.
Sure.
Okay.
One can only imagine the difficulty and the challenge for you as medical professionals to be able to advise on what treatment option to go for. We have another comment here from Angie, who says, what's the procedure in donating bone marrow stem cells? I'm thinking of donating when lockdown is over to help save a life.
Well, the procedure is relatively easy. We collect bone marrow stem cells from the blood, so just from an arm vein, generally. So that's a very easy procedure.
Yeah.
It goes into a machine and goes back in the other arm, and we just cull the cells that we actually want.
Yeah. So no longer those scary procedures I think that we once heard of, where they have to take out bone marrow from your tailbone or something like that.
We used to do that.
Yes,
we
no
used
longer.
To do that 20 years ago.
Is that how long ago? it was?
Over
So
20
many
years ago,
advancements.
I did my last one of those.
Wow. It's been advancing, clearly. But, Doctor, we actually have a caller on the line who has a question, I'm sure, for you. It's Vanessa. Vanessa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you, Vanessa. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling all the way from PE.
Vanessa, NPE. What's your question to the good doctor?
Okay, I'm beta thalassemia, and recently they've diagnosed me with bone marrow growing on my organs, like my kidneys, my lungs, and inside of my stomach, and that is so painful at times. I want to know, is there anything else that I can do, because the doctors just say it's normal now, and pain management is my answer.
Well, one needs to know what kind of leukemia you've had and what kind of treatment you've had. It's very difficult just to say off the top that there is something or isn't something that could help you further.
Yeah.
But you really need quite a lot more detail to be able to have a look at those kind of situations.
Okay, like I said, I don't have leukemia, I understand, but yes, I have also other queries regarding my illness being beta thalassemia major.
Oh, sorry, your beta thalassemia. Is that the...
Yes,
Yes.
Well, beta thalassemia is an inherited condition which makes you chronically
That's
anemic.
that's right.
And depending on the level that you have it at, their treatment for most patients is basically supportive. For a few
That's
children,
understood.
they may require chronic transfusions to maintain their hemoglobin at an adequate level. And for a very few children, it may be possible to do bone marrow transplants. So that one can do from time to time. But those patients have to be very carefully selected because there are risks in a transplant.
All right.
Thank you very much for that insightful question. Beta
Thalassemia.
thalassemia, something I've never heard of before.
this is the
Perhaps
first time
something
I'm
for us to
hearing
delve
of
into a little bit later on as well. Well, we got lots of other questions from social media, which we'll ask you on this side, Doctor, and then we'll kind of give our response to that. But we thank you very much for your time and expertise, and thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to it, your feel-good breakfast show right here on SABC3. We're live and we're chatting health and continuing our conversation this morning. We're still discussing bone marrow stem cell donation, the likes of leukemia as well with hematologist, of course, Dr. Mike du Toit, and now joined by CEO of the Sunflower Fund, Elana James. Of course, the Sunflower Fund was formed in the year 1999, and its main aim is to create awareness for the need of donors for those who are suffering from blood diseases such as leukemia. Of course, welcome to the show, Elana.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So
How are
good to have
things
you.
going at the Sunflower Fund?
Really busy.
Yeah?
Really, really busy. I think lockdown has created a whole new space for us to support patients. So,
that.
but we've been really good.
Yeah, fantastic to hear, because when things are busy, it means that people are coming around, people are registering, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But let's quickly start off by understanding what it is that the Sunflower Fund seeks to do. Let's start off there.
So our main goal is really to recruit stem cell donors.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And part of that means that we need to do a lot of education and awareness, educating people around what a stem cell donor is, how to register as a stem cell donor, and also the huge need we have in South Africa to register more stem cell donors to save the lives of many patients out there.
Okay, then let's talk about bone marrow and what that is then, because now you've got my attention. You're talking about donating and someone's wanting to donate and help out there, but what exactly is bone marrow?
Well, bone marrow is the factory in our big bones in the body that makes all the cells in the blood. And essential to the functioning of that bone marrow are cells we call stem cells, which conceptually are immortal cells that we're born with. We have them all our life, and they bud off, if you like, all the progenitors, the cells that will develop into all the other cells that we find in the blood. So when we harvest bone marrow from someone, that's our target, these so-called stem cells. That's what we need to create a new bone marrow in a recipient.
Yeah. So when we come to understanding just how important these donations are and these transplants are, how can they save lives, these bone marrow stem cell transplants?
So I mean, Dr. Mike du Toit can really tell you about what the need is of a patient and what state they're in when they're in need of a transplant. But many patients who are diagnosed with the blood disease, part of their treatment regime, most of them or many of them would end up in a space where their only chance of saving their life is through a stem cell donation. And that means that there needs to be a matching donor. And we'll first obviously look to see if any of their siblings, so their brothers or sisters, are a potential match. But the chances of that happening are only about 25%. So for all the rest of the patients, we need to find what we call an unrelated donor. And that would be one of the donors that would have been registered by the Sunflower Fund as a potential donor to save the life of a patient.
And we know that the Sunflower Fund does such an incredible job in that space, really working around the clock, always trying to find those donors and educating people, bringing that awareness. So if you are at home and really looking for that information, looking to donate, do go onto Sunflower Fund's website at sunflowerfund.org. So Who qualifies to be a donor?
So I always say the very first criteria is that you're willing to help a stranger in need. That for me is really the most important part. We then have a few health criteria which our team will go through, or when you register online you'll be able to see those. But between the ages of 18 and 55 and in relatively good health, in good health, and also that you've maintained a body weight of 50 kilograms or more. And really that is our key sort of starting point. And then we will have some other questions that we will go through with you. And it's really quite a simple process. You can do it online or you could call our toll-free call centre number and we will be able to assist you to register as a stem cell donor.
Yeah. That information is, of course, on your screen right now. Dr. Du Toit, if you could just highlight from your perspective as a professional working in the field, how important is the work that the Sunflower Fund is doing in getting people, firstly, educated around these issues and then having them to, register to become donors so that when these transplants are needed, you have the facilities and the resources available to do them?
Well, it's absolutely essential. If you have someone who needs a donor for a bone marrow transplant and they haven't got a sibling or a family member who can be the donor, you have to go outside the family. So you need a transplant, and so you say, well, who can I have? And I say, well, pick someone from the street. You walk down, you find a nice-looking young girl, and you tap her on the shoulder and you say, will you be my donor? If she's from the same ethnic group, then there's about 1 in 100,000 chance that she will match you. So to get a donor, a good supply of donors for patients in need, you need a fairly big database. And 100,000 is kind of the region you need to start from, ideally.
Goodness. So, I mean, the need is dire indeed. And so to get everyone, possibly everyone around South Africa registered is the goal that we're going for. Right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Fantastic.
We can do it then.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, both of you, Ilana and Dr. Du Toit, and really educating us and enlightening us on this very, very important topic. And hopefully that has informed your opinion as well. Now, remember, middle of August to the middle of October is dedicated to bone marrow stem cell donation and leukemia awareness. So make sure that you do your part to help save lives with the Sunflower Fund and register and donate today.